Hi, this is Sean, and this channel's called Wolf Dog Moon. Today we're going to be doing a review of Crossroads of Twilight by Robert Jordan. And it's book 10 of the Wheel of Time. If you like this kind of content, smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on our next video. Comment down below, let us know what you think, and share with your friends. Alright, let's get into this one. Alright, so we're going to do a review of this book, which I read. I finished this summer. Now, I've been reading the Wheel of Time for a while now. It's like I pretty much would read one book a year kind of thing in the summertime, and sometimes I didn't do that, but for the most part I did. And so we're gonna get into this one now. The Wheel of Time, if you're not familiar with it, it's this epic, this kind of grand epic that plays out over many books. And it's basically, I look at it kind of like, it's like the Lord of the Rings. It's like, it's in the same vein as Terry Brooks' The Shannara, kind of, and without elves though. So it's like the Lord of the Rings, but you don't have elves, and you don't have more of the Tolkien kind of tropes. In this one, they come up, Robert Jordan comes up, and this publisher, they come up with their own kinds of monsters and their own kinds of grand quest, where the main protagonist, his name's Ran al'Thor, and he's known as the Dragon Reborn, and there is a prophecy which foretells an end time scenario where this character called Rand must defeat this dark, essentially like a Dark Lord type character, like a great evil that's been slumbering and has been, through this prophecy, as it's been foretold that there's going to be a grand battle it's sort of almost like at the end of the last days, and it's going to take Rand and in this particular saga, a host of other characters that are known as Ta'veren, and they're like these special individuals that are tied to this Rand character, and they need to help him with his quest to defeat this Dark Lord type evil. Now, so there's a little snippet here. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass. What was, what will be, and what is may yet fall under the shadow. So it's essentially, it's like these characters on our, these, if you've been following the series up to this point, you know the main characters, and a lot of them are depicted on this. You have Matt, Cawthorn, and you have these different epic characters and different archetypes and stuff. And this is book, let's see, it's book 10 of the Wheel of Time, and so it lists the other books in the series. And let me see, so it's like, here's some brief things saying, and comparing it to Tolkien and stuff. Now, in some ways, I don't think it is Tolkien. It's its own thing, but it kind of it's definitely inspired by Tolkien's his works and stuff. I think a lot of times it feels more like a Western. It's sort of like a Western fantasy mashup with the epicness of like mythology, like Greek mythology, it feels like. And so I was just looking to see if it mentioned It's like there's these prophecies of the dragon, and and they're one of the elements in the book that's interesting is women can become these kind of sorcerers called Aes Sedai, and so the women are. It's almost like the women are more powerful than the men because they have this, a spell casting ability, and the men are seen. If the men manifest the same power, it's like tainted, and the men will, go mad and crazy. And so the Rand al'Thor character, he has, right away at the beginning in the very first book, you find out that he has this power that the Aes Sedai also wield. And so now they need to kill him before he goes mad, because the power is so great that they have like a zero tolerance aspect to them. They have this tower, and it's kind of like a kind of almost military type structure, where they have a top person who dictates all these different members of the Aes Sedai, and they teach new, like, initiate level wielders of the power. And they also they have different sort of colors, because there's different aspects of the magic that they focus on. There's like the greens focus more on like earthly, earth type, nature, and then the white are focus on purity and taking on these evils. And then there's a red that they're destructive, and they seek to make all the men, like, they oppress the men, and especially if they have these powers and stuff. So it's an interesting dichotomy in that way. You got the women that they're all powerful, and then the men are like Rand and Matt and Perrin, and they're like the counterpoint to that, where they focus more on kind of brute strength and heroism, and they all have they're like the faces. If you're a wrestling fan, they're the faces. They're always trying to do the right thing and the right way. And whereas like the Aes Sedai, they're trying to do things by any means necessary, and it's almost like the philosophy of the ends justify the means. So it's a pretty cool saga. Now I'm gonna flip this over, and so that's just like a brief overview. Now, what I would say with this series, okay, the book 1, The Eye of the World, book 2, The Great Hunt, book 3, The Dragon Reborn, book 4, The Shadow Rising. I would say those 4 books are the meat of the series. If you were to read those 4 books and then stop, I think you would get this idea of this grand epic, and then you have to go on to other series, and then you can use your imagination to come up with where do you think it's gonna go, because it feels like once you get to the 4th book, remember these books, they're super chunky. So you got like this book alone is like 800 pages, and so there's a lot of padding in especially this book right here. There's so much padding and so much just stalling to keep you around, so you're buying the next book. Whereas the first 4 books especially, and then are the meat of the series. And I would compare this to the Song of the Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. You should read the first 3 books and then stop. For example, with the Song of Ice and Fire, and then similarly, The another series I would compare this to in terms of its length and stuff is Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. Like, if you read the first 4 books and then stop there, and there are other supplementary type stuff, like there are short stories you could read that take place around the 4th book era. If you read those and then some of the connecting books in the Stephen King Dark Tower, I think you should stop. Now, this one, I would say you could read the first 4 books and then the next 2 books, The Fires of Heaven and The Lord of Chaos. In book 5 especially, there's some cool stuff where they got these other type characters that come in. They're almost like Indians. They're these Pathic warriors, and they have their own, almost like the Fremen in Dune, if you've read Dune. So the Fires of Heaven is cool, and then the Lord of Chaos, half the book. So you're getting, once you get to book 5 and book 6, it's like half the book is really good. And then after that, after book 6, the series devolves, where they're just stalling, the publisher's stalling, and the story's stalled out, the characters, stuff is happening, but it's just dragging, where all these books, probably books 6 through 10, you could have made one book and cut all out the sludge and where nothing's happening, and you would have had an awesome book. So my advice, I'm stopping with this. For example, I read The Crossroads of Twilight, which is this book right here, and my review of this book is that it has to be one of the worst books I've ever read in my life, and because literally nothing happens, and it becomes to a point where it's laughable, where, for example, the women, the Aes Sedai, they're preparing to do something, and they're discussing what they're going to do, and then breaking up into groups and discussing what they're doing, and then they're getting back together and discussing what they're doing, and without coming to like any plan of what they're going to do. The whole book is of them discussing what they're going to do, but it's mostly sipping tea and talking about describing their clothing, and describing their they're pulling their hair, they're twitching, it's laughable too, to the point where, with like not very many pages to go, and I'm literally not kidding, with 10 to 20 pages to go, they're still sipping tea. There's nothing happens in this book. There are a couple cool scenes that happen, but they're when they do, it's kind of like it becomes kind of laughable, and it's not, you could have just released on a website like, okay, this is what happens. It doesn't make a book like at all, but yet this is 800 pages. It has like a 200 page or something prologue in this. It's shocking. And so I'm stopping at this book. Now, some of these other ones, there was some cool bits in them where you got the Ashaman and these cool new characters, the dark guys that they bring in to help Rand al'Thor. But to me, I'm done reading The Wheel of Time, and so that's my review of this series. Now, I do know that this book series got so long in the tooth that the actual author, Robert Jordan, he passed away before he could finish the series, and he entrusted all his notes and his direction and what he was going to do to this writer, Brandon Sanderson, and which I may do a review of some of his books at another time, but he is kind of another author in the same vein as Robert Jordan, where I'd put, he has to essentially finish the Wheel of Time using Robert Jordan's notes and working with the publisher and stuff. So if you stop, like I said, if you stop after either book 4 or book 5 and don't continue, that would be my advice with this series, because you're just gonna be trudging through these books where nothing happens, and then the author passes away later. So you're gonna get this other writer finishing it. And like I said, I'll do a review of some of his books. He's another writer where he's a little bit, I would put Robert Jordan in the same category of being super overrated as authors. So comment down below on what you think. If you've read this book or if you finished the Wheel of Time, let me know. I'm not going to finish this series. I'm done after this book. For me, I consider this one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. To me, fantasy works the best where you have these heroes going on a quest, and it's easily understood what they're going to have to do, and you can picture how long it's going to take and how they're going to go about doing that. Where it feels like, okay, the author had this idea in his mind, but it would take 1,000 years of books to really finish it the right way, which is why I mentioned something such as the Song of Ice and Fire. When I finished the 3rd book, I think it's called Storm of Swords, I was like, okay, that was awesome, that's epic, but there's no point in reading any more books. This is going to take like 20 more books for it to conclude. You got so many characters and so many threads and different other issues to resolve. It would take too long. And now, for example, with the Song of Ice and Fire, I read the 4th book, which is called A Feast for Crows, and that book, I consider it to be terrible, but I read it. It has cool bits in it. And then the Dance with Dragons, it was like, okay, that was cool and silly at the same time. I'm done reading this. I know this is never going to be finished. And this is the same way. So that's my review on Crossroads of Twilight. Let me know down below what you think. And in the meantime, I hope this video finds you having an amazing day. And we hope that you have a blessed day. Signing out.